I guess good afternoon for some of you, I guess. So next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So this is a heat flow probe. So its scientific objective was to quantify the flow of heat that originates from the interior of the moon at the Marie Curie landing site. And I should also mention that there have been only 2 heat flow measurements on the moon, and both were done by the Apollo astronauts. So this was the first robotic attempt to make heat flow measurement. Then to achieve that objective, LISTER needed to measure temperature and thermal conductivity of the regolith at multiple depths in the deep enough subsurface where temperature is stable and affected by the insolation cycles. Then the Apollo data suggested that about 1 meter depth was that threshold. Then, so why we wanted to go to Marie Curie? So the 2 previous measurements done by the Apollo astronauts were often discussed in the context of whether they are inside or outside of PKT. So that's why this time we wanted to go very far out from PKT and see what kind of heat flow we can get. So then also Marie Curie has a very thin crust. So that's why whatever we measure on the surface should be fairly close to the flux out of the mantle. So then another one was so we wanted to make a measurement in the middle of a mare, and because the previous 2 measurements were done in a relatively geologically complex place, along the margins of major impact space. So those were the objectives. Next slide, please. All right, so just to before talk about LISTER, so I just wanted to show you as a comparison of how the Apollo astronauts did the measurements. So they brought a traditional rotary percussive drill, then drill a hole that's 2.5 meters deep. Then they used the auger also as a casing so that the regolith will not collapse and fill up the hole again. Then so they clear the inside the casing. Then they install these sensor assemblies. Then they use mainly the measurements taken in the lower half of the hole to determine the heat flow. Then the auger. So they had to they came in like a 1/2 meter section. So that's why they'll drill down 1/2 meter. They put another section of the auger, then drill down another 1/2 meter. So that's a fairly cumbersome process. So as you can see from this video from Apollo 16, Charlie Duke trying to use the same drill to make a deep hole. So that's why this kind of operation cannot be adapted to a robotic lander. Then also another problem was that so their sensors were really bulky, and then also because of the casing, they are not in direct contact with the regolith. So that's a part of the reason. That's why they had to wait like several weeks for the whole thing to thermally equilibrate with the regolith before they can actually determine the temperature distribution of the regolith. So that's why we had to completely rethink the CLPS for the CLPS operation. Next slide, please. Yes. So here. So we have LISTER already accommodated underneath the platform of the Blue Ghost lander. That's on the picture on the left side. So that's the lander sitting in the Firefly's clean room. Right then, so the picture on the right kind of give you a sort of a cartoon of the CLPS. So the deployment mechanism of LISTER spool out the sensor stainless steel tube. Then so the leading end of the tube, we have the thermal sensors. It says RTD1, RTD2 in the very small needle sensor, we call it. So this whole thing will just penetrate into the subsurface. Then we make measurements as we go. So we down deeper. Right. Next slide, please. Then to penetrate into the subsurface, so we utilize a technique called the pneumatic excavation. Basically, we emit a jet of nitrogen gas out of the leading end of the tube to excavate a hole. Right. Somehow that kind of video is kind of moving a bit jaggy here. But here we go. So Sensor comes out, it touches the surface, then we start blowing the gas, right? So so the original plan was we go down ½ meter and take a set of measurements, then another ½ meter and take another set of measurements. So basically, we wanted to advance ½ meter bites until we got to 3 meter depth. But it turned out that the regolith of the landing site was a lot gravitier than we expected. So next slide, please. So here summarizes the surface of excavation on the mission. Then also you can see the video from our first excavation operation of Lister. Then hopefully you can see this because the video is kind of small, picture is, but we see these explosions from time to time, right? So that happened when Lister broke through a layer of semi-lithified regolith. Then we believe we encountered quite a few of those. But anyway, so that's why we were able to reach 95 centimeter depth in the first 36 hours of operation. But then afterwards, the going got really hard. And so we had this so-called dithering maneuver. So dithering maneuver to sort of overcome a certain type of obstacles. So whenever the Lister's advance slows down due to an obstacle or something, it engages in the sort of vibratory kind of woodpecker-like movement to sort of loosen the whatever the obstacle that's stopping the advance. So that worked fairly well. So that afterwards, after we reached 95 centimeters depth, so even that didn't have much in effect. So in the meantime, the lander was getting really, really hot as the sun was higher. So we had to kind of shut down the operation. And anyway, so okay, so next slide, please. All right. So here, show you like what one set of data set looks like. So the graph on the upper left, so that tells you the record of temperature record after we inserted the needle into the bottom of the hole, right? At the this one is 32.9 centimeter depth. The blue line is the temperature record from our main RTD, and then the green one is our spare RTD. Then so we let the needle equilibrate for an hour, right? Then afterwards, so this needle sensor has a heater built into it. So we turn on the heater, then so as you can see, the temperature of the needle will go up, right? Then so we let the heater on for 30 minutes. Then afterwards, we let the needle cool back down for another 30 minutes, right? Then we use the first half of the data to determine the equilibrium temperature of the regolith. So basically what we did was extrapolated this equilibration trend all the way to time infinity. So that's what these dashed lines represent, right? Then to determine the thermal conductivity, so we had the finite element model of the sensor assembly of Lister. Then we tried to duplicate the heating and the cooling curves for both sensors. So that's how we determine the thermal conductivity, right? Next slide, please. Right. So because we were not able to go as deep as we were originally hoping, so go beyond 1 meter depth, right? But we stopped at about 98 centimeters. So that's why we determined the heat flow of the landing site by modeling the interaction between the insolation-induced thermal waves propagating deeper into the regolith and the upward flow of the moon endogenic heat, right? Then by doing so, actually, we were able to simultaneously constrain the heat flow and the thermal conductivity versus depth. So then one of the crucial inputs for that model was the surface heat input from the sun, right? To reconstruct that history, and so we estimated, how the temperature went up and down in the landing site, preceding like something in 15 years. Then so we calibrated that with the diviner flyover measurements of the landing site, right? Then so the graph on the right is the reconstructed history of the subsurface temperature of the landing site. So that's plotted every half meter, right? So going from half meter to 3 meters depth. Then as you can see, by the time you get to 1.5 meters, there's very little fluctuation, right? But if you look at the blue curve, that's the thermal history at half meter depth, then you can clearly see the annual fluctuation, right? Then, so that's overprinted by diurnal smaller amplitude fluctuation, right? Then also you can see that the amplitude of the annual fluctuation at that half meter depth is it's the biggest around the year 2016, right? Then so that amplitude was slowly shrinking toward 2025. So that was due to the precession of the moon. So that's why when we landed in March of 2025 in Maricrisium, actually the effect of the insolation fluctuation was at its minimum. So that's why it worked pretty well for our purpose, right? So next slide, please. All right, so the graph on the left, so that's the temperature versus depth graph. Then there was the purple dots. Those are the actual measurements from Lister. Then dotted line and the solid lines are the estimates from the model I just talked about, right? Then if you look at the green line here, so that's the model predicted temperature versus depth for the day of Lister operation, right? Then, so March the 4th. Then as you can see, the green line goes through just about all the dots fairly well, right? So that's why we are fairly confident that our estimate of the heat flow based on this modeling is fairly reliable, because it's calibrated by the subsurface temperature measurements and also divide a flyover with the surface temperature. So then also to duplicate the shape of the curve, also the model has to accurately represent the thermal conductivity versus depth relationship. So that's the graph in the middle with the red curve there, right? Then, so blue dots on the middle graphs, those are the results of the in situ measurements. Then, so there are two outliers there, so those are higher conductivity than expected. So we think those are the measurements done in what those regolith regolith I told you about, the semi-identified regolith. Then the graph on the right, so it's a sensitivity analysis. So that's again temperature versus depth in the same purple dot. Then, so the curves are now drawn for a heat flow value of 13 and 14 and 15 milliwatt per square meters. Then the 41, the curve for 14, that's the green one that fits the best fits the overall shape of the curvature. Right. So that's why we think heat flow at the landing site is 14. Right. Next slide, please. Right. So then, just speaking of the regolith redshift, so this is one of the SCALPS images after we landed. So you can see Lister and its hull on the left. Then the green arrows kind of point to this regolith redshift. Those were exposed on the surface. So that's why we think there are quite a few of those on subsurface too. Okay, regolith free. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in conclusion, so Lister demonstrated that it is possible to determine the endogenic heat flow of the moon on the robotic lander mission, because we made technological sort of innovations into designing Lister. The Lister was it performed pneumatic excavation for the first time on the moon. Then also Lister married active excavation of the regolith to the subsurface measurements, right? So that was also first. And because of that, we were able to penetrate 1 meter depth, and they also made measurements at multiple depths on the way down, right? Then second, so the heat flow at Blue Ghost landing site is comparable to that of Apollo 17, right? Then if you look at the graph on the lower left there, so that kind of gives you an idea how the heat flow varies, out of the PKT to BGM1, right? So it's a gradual change. Then, so those gradual changes don't seem to match the previously proposed model of, assuming hot PKT and the cold rest of the moon. So that's why we may need to kind of go beyond that sort of a binary thermal modeling approach, and then we have to kind of rethink the distribution of the subsurface heat sources. Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you.